And your whole life will be completely different if you just make one micro change. Is our pain goes deeper than we ever want to know, but our love goes deeper than we can know.
You can't have charge in a grounded object. You can't have charge in a grounded body.
These doctors did things that were completely outside of mainstream medicine, but it was apparently exactly what my body needed, because within short order I started getting better.
If you want to clean a house, you have to see the dirt. Okay, there's dirt in that corner, so we're going to clean it. Like, let's look at it, clean it, and then that positive, inspired person can come forth naturally.
You can tell us about the 4x4 first.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. It's pretty simple. So it's not exact. It's just a generalized 4 in, 4 out kind of. And this is just a nice way to pattern your energy, pattern your breath. And you can link it with the body awareness exercises. And the general body awareness is moving it from the feet all the way to the top of the head and down the arms. But there's a whole series of ones. And the more deeply you get into it, the stronger you get the energy. So I thought I'd give a freebie technique to people so they could start doing healing immediately. And I can think of this kind of like training wheels on a bicycle. You're not going to go very fast, and you're certainly not going to want to go very far, but you can actually pedal on a 2-wheel bicycle with training wheels. And this is kind of a training wheels technique that is a substitute for knowing how to actually do the breathing and body awareness exercise, but it can get you some experiences immediately, and then when you want to learn to become powerful, you can learn how to do quantum touch in a more powerful way. What you do is you rub your hands together for 10-15 seconds, and then take a deep breath, put your hands on the person and breathe out your hands. And what happens is your hands are automatically vibrating and tingling after you rub them together. Well, this is a mechanical way of bringing your body awareness to your hands. It has nothing to do with rubbing your hands or static electricity or anything like this. It's just a mechanical way of drawing your attention to your hands. Then 2 minutes later, you do it again. And every minute or two, you rub your hands and put them back down again. This is a cheat way to kind of like get awareness into your hands. And then by linking it with your breathing and keeping your awareness in your hands, you'll actually start doing some quantum touch. Even though you haven't studied it at all, you'll actually be able to start getting some kinds of results. You continue to do the breathing and body awareness exercises, so you continue to raise your own vibration. And since you're the dominant vibration, they're always going to come up to match you. You're never coming down to match them. So it's great for the practitioner. And a physician, Dr. Jerry Pittman, wrote years ago that in its elegance, quantum touch first provides healing for the practitioner. And that's sort of the essence of it.
Beautiful. If we look at people who have been, let's say that the spine is realigned, or as you were discussing earlier, tumors have melted away, is it something that loses its stick over time, or once somebody has had this healing work done, it stays?
You know, this is such a big question. It's going to be an entire book on the subject. But what we're really talking about is the body has the ability to heal itself, but it also has the ability to be sick, not as a dysfunction, but a communication from our higher self. So sometimes the message is, you can heal yourself very quickly and learn to transcend this problem. And the cat was ready to show you how powerful healing could be. And that's fantastic. And there's other times when there's emotional causes. And so back in 1980, I woke up with severe flu symptoms one day, deep gurgling, chest cough, bone aching, fever, sore throat, headache, miserable. I thought I was going to be sick for at least a week. And instead of crawling out to the kitchen and getting some hot water with lemon juice, I wrapped myself in a blanket, sat on the floor, and decided to look for an emotional cause, because I just attended a workshop that said that all illness is caused by various forms of suppressed anger. So I couldn't find anything in my life. In fact, I was emotionally numb, and I couldn't find anything whatsoever to be upset about. And then all of a sudden, after about 8 or 10 minutes of looking, I remembered that 3 days previously, somebody in my household had said something that was intended to humiliate me, and it did, in front of a bunch of people I knew. And I pretended nothing was said so I could avoid the experience as quickly as possible. And as soon as I had that awareness of those emotions, all my emotions came rushing in. And I got really angry, and I cried, and I vented a little bit, and I felt a little better. So I got up and took a shower, got dressed, drove downtown Santa Cruz, sat in the sun, had a cup of coffee. And right in the middle of the cup of coffee, I thought, oh my God, I was sick this morning. This took me almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. I think it was 29 plus years to figure it out. And I finally came up with a system that I call self-created health that teaches people how to find and release the emotional causes of health conditions. And not only do the symptoms go away, mm-hmm. but people feel intensely grateful, the most grateful they've ever felt in their life, because it showed them how they had stopped loving, that the body had the ability to be sick, not as a dysfunction, but a communication from their higher self on how the love got blocked. And this is now being taught around the world. We've got about 30 instructors now teaching people this workshop called Self-Created Health. And after I finish my newest book, which will be out next year, called The Secret Nature of Matter, then Self-Created Health will be the one after that, and I'm working on another one after that. So there's a whole series of incredible insights yet to be discovered. And that one is called Self-Created Health. The life is giving us whispers all the time. And so what I've learned to do is come up with about 12 questions mm-hmm. that I ask people that seem innocuous, like when did it begin, what are your symptoms and things like this. And they answer all the questions, and I keep pumping them for more information. Tell me more about the pain and so forth. And I write down everything they say verbatim. That's part of the trick. And then when I've got enough information about everything about the condition, I say, okay, you said it started 8 years ago. Well, think around that time. Was there an emotional situation that had some of these components? And they will, they'll say, well, it kind of sounds like my relationship with my ex or my dad or whatever. And I'll say, well, let's see if it fits. And then I'll go through all 40 of their replies, mm-hmm. and every one of them will fit like a glove to describe that emotional situation. And then I'll hand them, and then I'll say, well, what do you do with those emotions? And they'll say, they're the ones I never want to experience. And I'll hand them the list and say, well, maybe you're experiencing them as physical symptoms instead of as an emotion. And then they have this moment, to use that wonderful word, grok, they get it, like, oh my God. It suddenly makes complete sense to them that they've suppressed this set of emotions. They never wanted to feel them. They were too vulnerable. They were too painful, whatever it was. And now they know where to work. Then I give them exercises for releasing the emotions and then moving through what I call a 7-step process. First the discovery, then the release, then the insight that they had done it to themselves, which is totally dangerous if you didn't do steps 1 and 2. And then the remorse for having hurt yourself, and then the self-forgiveness, which becomes explosive, overwhelming self-love that you can't contain. Woohoo! And that turns into this unfathomable gratitude. Mm-hmm. And so the symptoms disappear, and they're left in place with this incredible empowerment and gratitude. And that is what self-created health is. And so far, we don't have it on video. It's or in a book form. It's being taught by people, by courageous people. And the very first thing I like to say at the workshops is our pain goes deeper than we ever want to know, but our love goes deeper than we can know. Beautiful. And when people dive into the depth of their emotion, they put their toe in the water. Oh no, it hurts too much to go into this pool of emotion. I don't want to feel it. And they dive in, they go all the way to the bottom. They get all the way to the bottom. That's where the treasure is. But you don't get to the treasure of how deep your love goes, the infinite capacity of your love to transform and transcend. You don't get there unless you dive through the core of the emotions. Well, I don't have to feel the emotions. I'm spiritual. I don't have to feel anything. Well, then you're dead. You have no access to resources, your own inner resources. The suffering is a gift that we've given ourselves to be able to awaken to who we truly are. But we don't know it because we're so caught in the drama and the pain and avoiding the intensity. So if there was a great human blockage, the one that people never want to get past, it's the unwillingness to feel the intensity of our emotions. That's the great human blockage. And the most courageous and healthy people are the ones willing to experience the depths of themselves, their loved ones, and not to hide from those depths, but to go all the way through them to the other side, where they get to experience the wonder of who and what they truly are.
So let's say you're motivated to heal yourself.
Yes.
Is there a different technique we start to use to do that?
I would suggest that you do everything. You process the emotions. Mm-hmm. You learn how to stop. You know, there's this incredible diet. It's called the Stop Eating Junk diet, where you actually eat real food the way your grandparents might have eaten it, and you gradually substitute healthier choices for less healthy choices. And my diet is never static. It's constantly evolving and getting better and better. And I'm stronger now at age 68.
So we throw emotional healing at it. What are the other components? Basically, the kitchen sink. What is the kitchen sink?
The kitchen sink is nutritionally. Mm-hmm. You got to get yourself on a good program. Stop eating the junk and the sugars and the bad fats and other things. Move into the really healthy fats and the good nutrition, the fresh foods, essentially. Then process the emotions. Release the old angers and resentments so that you can live in a vibration of gratitude and joy. Because what's the point of being here if you're not having fun? It just doesn't make any sense. You need to get your body moving. You need to get the whole system moving. And energetically, you need to move the energy. It's a different kind of exercise where you keep the energy going. Well, it turns out that the emotions have more to do with the energy than anything else. Mm-hmm. The nutrition has everything to do with the energy. And our exercise moves energy as well. And don't just pick on one. There's this really cool technique called easy strength where you don't work out to exhaustion. You just you go about 60% upper body strength, or 40% upper body strength or 60% lower body strength, mm-hmm. and you do a set every 10 or 20 minutes where you never get tired, but you get stronger week by week by week, a whole lot stronger. There's ways of building yourself up energetically, emotionally, spiritually, with all the different methods. So you work with them all. If you're dissatisfied, you're in the wrong job, in the wrong relationship or something, process. What do you really want? Be clear about your desires. Get passionate about your life. Get passionate about what you're doing. And even if it's only for 10 minutes a day, build on something new. Because the life force energy is a full expression of our spiritual reality. And so you want to get your vibration and your energy up as high as you possibly can, energetically, emotionally, and spiritually, so that you can exemplify your deepest, truest expression.
Where do we start with our kids? Either healing our kids or teaching them how to start doing this as well?
The first step is lead by example. Be the person who processes their emotions, who's constantly looking to up-level everything in their life, who can be honest and vulnerable and say, hey, I screwed up when I told you that. Mm-hmm. I'm really sorry about that. I will never do that again. I won't behave that way anymore. And then they learn to celebrate your failures because it means you're stretching. To be that person. And then to continue and to communicate with them as wise young people who, okay, let's have a meal where you eat a whole bunch of sugar. How did you feel afterwards? That didn't feel good, did it? No. So now we know that doing that doesn't, it kind of tastes good for a moment, but then it feels bad for a long time. So you work on all levels. You work on the emotional, the nutritional, the energetic levels, the exercise levels. You work on everything together. This is how we heal. But the most important and deepest healing always comes from emotional honesty. That's where the core comes in. Now, learning these skills, like we just got a story this week about somebody who got 3 quantum touch sessions and the colon cancer disappeared. That's fantastic stuff. We love hearing these stories. And it's a core element of our gift to one another that we can give our love. But all of it boils down to the honesty. And so we're doing, as a ritual of self-love, we're eating better and better. And if anybody listening to it is on a bad diet, no biggie. Just have one better choice today than you would have made otherwise. That's it. That's all you have to do. Every day, just add one small decision to make one tiny change. Just change 1% a week.
And that to me.
And your whole life will be completely different if you just make one micro change in a week.
That to me a big woohoo!
Yeah, exactly. So in the Art of Youthing workshop that I put together, this course, I suggest people change, just make a 2% change a week. By the end of the year, you're 100% different. Just a little tiny one. If you try to go quickly, your body will hate it and you'll rebel against yourself. But you make these tiny changes, and there's endless little changes you can make. So you just start down the path and just say, okay, well, instead of this, cake, I'll have the strawberries and whipped cream. Sounds good. I'm not going to mind not eating the cake. I'll have a better choice that made me feel better.
Let's talk about what is earthing.
Well, so basically what earthing is all about is the earth itself is, I hate to use technical terms, but I have to, but it's negatively charged.
Yes.
And the word negative means, like, if you take a look at a battery, you have a positive end and a negative end. The positive end, there are no electrons. The negative end, there's an excess of electrons. And so you put a light in between and you turn a switch on, and the electrons will travel from the negative side to the positive side until they're all used up, then the battery's dead. So the earth itself is negatively charged. It's about 20 to 50 millivolts negative. So that means on the surface of the earth, there's an abundance of free electrons, and they're free. They can move. If you've seen lightning, you've seen electrons being able to move and reduce charge in the clouds. Everything electrical in the world, all of our electrical grids, many of our home appliances and everything, they're all grounded to the earth. And so what they're doing is when you connect something to the earth, then it equalizes with the earth. So if you take your computer and plug it in and it's grounded, then the chassis of the computer will have a negative surface charge. On the chassis of the computer, it'll be minus 20 to 50 millivolts.
Now, when you were in the cable industry for a long time, in fact, largely responsible, if I understand right, for cable routers, which is a whole nother story to itself. But you found very quickly, if the cables weren't grounded, plugged into Earth, the signal was, in technical terms, all messed up.
Yeah, what you have is noise. You have a lot of noise. And a lot of it just becomes because the system is an aerial system, meaning in the wind, and you have all of the atmospheric static, the wind blowing creates static electricity, the dust, everything that's going on out there that creates a lot of noise. And then you have lightning. And so you have to ground everything so that it maintains the electrical potential of the earth, or the surface of the earth, so that reduces all this noise and this charge. It dampens everything so that you have a good signal, good clean signal. And that's kind of how I related it to the body in the early days, that the body's kind of like a cable system inside. It has nerves running everywhere, and it has a myelin sheath, which is a dielectric, meaning it doesn't conduct anything, and it shields the nerves, and it goes on and on. But the main thing is to maintain electrical stability, to maintain a clean sound, a clean picture, clean data, and so on.
people think, well, I'm not electrical, but go into the doctor and have an EKG or an EEG or anything with a G in it. And what you're going to find, or a brain scan,
Yes.
is that we're an electrical system, aren't we?
Yes. Every cell in the body functions electrically. In order for it to take nutrition in and take whatever out, the cell has to depolarize and repolarize, meaning you have a negative charge on the outside or the inside, and you have one of them is like 15 millivolts, one of them is 75 millivolts, and every time those discharge, they pump, nutrition, whatever, in and out of the cell. So that's an electrical phenomena, and that's kind of how earthing came about all the way around. Because eventually, once what I learned was that, it's quite by accident, that when you ground the body, then if you have any pain or inflammation in your body, and back then the word inflammation was not really in the language, but if you have pain in the body, then the pain goes away. And it's kind of like, well, how does that happen? And nobody knew. I didn't know. I did a lot of search in the medical industry, medical libraries. Nothing. You talk to docs, nobody could get their head around what I was talking about. But what I did know for sure is whether it's an animal, a plant, or a human, when you touch the earth, you can't have charge in a grounded object. You can't have charge in a grounded body. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know how the immune system worked or how the body worked in the beginning. I just knew that if you had pain, the pain would go away. If you are not grounded, like an animal or a tree would be grounded if they're outdoors sitting on the earth. Okay, if you are not grounded, and you've noticed that trees will grow into power lines, it doesn't hurt them at all these kind of things. But if you are not grounded, you are an antenna. That means your body attracts, like the low frequency 60 hertz EMFs and all that kind of electrical noise that's in your environment. And it can perturb, molecules, electrons in your body, especially water molecules, and create what I like to say is like I go back to Montana in the woods. When we were young, we used to go hunting, or we'd be outdoors a lot, and you could always feel if there was a bear in the woods.
Oh yeah,
because your hair would stand straight up. You couldn't hear the bear, you couldn't smell him, you couldn't see him, but you knew he was there because your hair would stand straight up. Where that comes from, the bear has an energy field. You have an energy field, and throughout eons of time, that signaling is built into us. And today we have so much noise in our environments. So now our that very elementary primal sensing system is kind of overridden by all the noise that's in our environment. Because in EMF, every animal, every plant, everything has an EMF, emits its own electromagnetic fields and frequencies. And so when you are grounded to the earth, then your body is equal to the earth, and you have the earth will actually pushes these these fields away from you. But when you are not grounded, then your body, the fields try to pull the electrons in your body into compliance with the energy source. And it's kind of too technical to get into, but if you are ungrounded and let's say you hear a car go by, or you hear noise, whatever, so your sympathetic nervous system is going to respond to everything in your environment, no matter what it is, whether it's noise, wind, heat, cold, somebody drops a fork, anything goes on, your sympathetic nervous system is going to fire. It's going to respond. Yeah. It's part of the fight or flight. On the other hand, you have your parasympathetic, which operates pretty much with hormones. So every time, and what it tries to do is release enough hormones to calm you down just enough so you can think. So you have a few split seconds to make a decision. Do I run or do I fight? And that's all good. The problem is we live in a chronically elevated sympathetic state because of all this noise, this electrical noise. Mm-hmm. All noise is electrical, whether it's sound, heat, cold. It's all, in a sense, electrical. So when you are not grounded, then you have 1,000 bears, attack. I mean, or 1,000 coyotes after you.
Yeah.
And so, but the parasympathetic is sitting here pumping hormones, and then all of a sudden, eventually, you suffer what is called adrenal fatigue, because the sympathetic keeps working, keeps running, but the parasympathetic is running out of resources to dampen the effect of the sympathetic response. And so then eventually the cortisol, creates, now that it can create more pain because you've lost your ability to modulate or, to dampen that sympathetic response. So then now the sympathetic is running wild, and so it's over, it's over responding. And it's a lot of people who have like fibromyalgia. It's kind of related to that, because now they have phantom pain. It's running all over the place, and they don't know exactly what it is sometimes. And but they're super sensitive to everything: touch, sound, everything, cold, temperature, everything, and electric fields for sure. You have to get grounded in order to to protect yourselves from these frequencies. A lot of these frequencies you can't really protect yourself from because they're too high frequency. But you can't. There's, we created an artificial environment that we're living in, and then we've energized it with all of these electric fields and all this unnatural noise. And our nervous systems, everybody's nervous systems, is just like this. So the only thing you can do is put your feet on the ground and ground it out. If we're pouring electrons into the body, it's like pouring water onto a fire, because it's the same process. And so now what's happening is, you have a pathogen, or you have damaged cell, and again the neutrophil comes over there and reduces the radical. And then if there's any excess radicals left over from that response, that immune response, then they're only going to last 3 or 4, 20 nanoseconds at most, and they're going to latch on to an electron from somewhere, steal an electron. So it neutralizes itself because it's electrically charged. Yeah. And so it's just looking to neutralize. So it reaches over and grabs a cell from a healthy, an electron from a healthy cell. Yeah. And that damages that cell. And so now the immune system sends another neutrophil over, cleans up that mess. And so it's ongoing collateral damage. It's like a log on fire. It's a slow burning fire. And so that's when I was able to put together. So it doesn't matter what's wrong, as long as if you have inflammation, all we have to do is put a patch on or ground you, take your shoes off, your hands, put your feet and your hands on the earth and keep you there for 20, 30 minutes, and your pain will come way down. Then the healing of the damage that has been done by the ongoing oxidation, that may take time to repair and for you to fully recover. But that hot burning pain stops, and then the healing process can kick in. So that's how we made the connection between that humans accidentally disconnected from the earth and we lost our natural ground. Because when the body is grounded, when it's at earth potential, it's negative. You cannot have inflammation in a negative environment.
What's going on in our blood that's creating cardiovascular disease, that's creating high blood pressure, which has to do with inflammation as well.
Yeah. Well, this was really, again, with Dr. Sinatra and Dr. Chevalier. Everybody, nobody could really understand how the electrons from the earth got into the body and how they went and put out the fire of inflammation. To me, I just know that kind of electrons take the path of least resistance to a charge. And that's simple, math. But so in the body, you have a lot of inflammation. If you have any inflammation, you have a lot of inflammation. It may be subtle, and it may be more concentrated in one area. That's where you're going to feel the pain. But so anyhow, what we learned was we were forever looking, so what's the mechanism of action that allows these electrons to get to the site of inflammation and reduce the charge. So Stephen being a cardiologist, and we knew that as soon as you ground somebody, 15, 20 minutes later, the color comes up, the skin color comes up. Yeah. And so then we knew that blood was involved. So we started looking at blood before and after grounding. Our first little test, we saw that before, everybody's blood was kind of in a rouleau formation, thick and sticky, and kind of like popcorn and so on, so it stick together in static electricity. And everybody's blood was a little different, but it always had some kind of rouleau formation. And so we took a group of, I think, a dozen cardiologists back in Essex, Connecticut. They're all Stephen's friends. And so we drew blood from each one of them, looked at them under a dark field or a white field. And then we grounded them for 30 to 40 minutes each, and then drew the blood again. And before, their blood was all kind of kludged up, thick and sticky. And afterwards, everybody's blood separated and looked perfectly smooth. The red blood cells were all easy to see, and so they were more fluid. We reduced the viscosity, and so then we did a second study, and we wanted to figure out what exactly was happening to the blood cells. So we measured the electrical surface charge on red blood cells. Yeah. Before, it may have been, negative. Maybe it has to be negative, otherwise it's glue. It'll bond. It'll electroplate. I mean, they'll stick together. So, but the body had, the average person had like the red blood cells were like 5 millivolts negative. As soon as we ground them, they went to 15 to 20, and then the blood all separated. So what happened was the more you increase the surface charge on red blood cells, then like little magnets, little negative magnets, you push them together, and they'll push each other apart. So red blood cells cannot stick together when you're grounded. And now the red blood cells can get in and out of the capillaries, oxygenate the tissue, because they're not stuck together. They go in single file and do their magic and take the oxygen in, take whatever out. And so it's a beautiful, elegant system. So animals in nature, they don't have thick blood. And it's just, that is the phenomena, that was the discovery, that is the mechanism of action. Because now if you have a pocket of inflammation, the blood can go in there and it can give up electrons all the way. I mean, if it can still function at 5, it can give up, a third of its electrons to reduce that inflammation and go back through another cycle in the system, which only takes a minute or two, and it keeps the electrons flowing, the free electrons flowing.
And when we're plugged in, there's an endless supply.
Yes, it's an endless supply. The Earth is infinitely large, and and we're infinitely small comparatively speaking, but there's always there's a reservoir out there that is infinite.
But I was trying to get myself grounded. I kept on going and play over in the sandbox and would put water in the sandbox to try to make soil, because something inside of me felt good about getting my hands in the soil. What was going on? Yes.
Well, that's because you're short of electrons, and your nervous system and your sympathetic overdrive, anxiety, irritability, and all the related issues there. And then eventually the immune system becomes so compromised that it can't fight off the normal day-to-day assaults from pathogens and viruses and so on.
And I knew that getting my hands in fact, it's in the documentary. What is the group Kiss the Ground?
Yes. In fact, there's even a clip from some of those folks in the Earthing movie. And, it's the soil. In the soil, I mean, if you take a microscope and look at the soil, I mean, there's a whole universe of life there that is just absolutely stunningly phenomenal. And so the health of our soil is, to maintain that bacteria that keeps the soil, the processes the soil, keeps it alive. The soil is alive. And if you grow things like in live soil I'm talking about not our manufactured pesticide, artificial fertilized soil today, but everything's sweeter, it's different, it's better, it's more nutritious, because that's what you're eating is nutrition. And so there's this systematic thing between us and the soil and the plants that we eat and the air that we breathe, and it's all connected. It's all one thing. So the soil is much more significant than any of us can even recognize, because we've lost touch with it. The smell of soil, affects us. Everything about soil affects us.
So if people are going to get grounded, Where do we begin?
Well, the simplest way, and what I'd like to encourage people to do, because this all sounds absurd, and in many cases, the best thing to do is just go to the park, take stock of your feeling, how you feel mentally, physically, your pain, whatever, and then just take your shoes off, your hands off, sit on the earth, put your hand and feet on the earth, and stay there for 30 minutes. Dampen the soil a little bit if it's in your backyard. Even if you can't do anything else, just get grounded and experience it. And then 30 minutes later, if it had any impact at all, then you need to do it again. And you need to, but that's, it's like a lot of people. The younger you are, you don't have the chronic health disorders, but the older you are, like once you get into your 35, 50, up to 55 and so on, it's a real issue here. And so, but what I try to tell people is figure out, first of all, come to terms with it. There's something here. The earth is alive. It's energetic. Your body's alive, energetic, and they're connected. When you connect the two of them, then it normalizes vagal tone. We see that in the preemies. That's not a placebo effect. That's real. So this is what's happening to you when you go outdoors. So it's normalizing. It's taking the charge off your blood. Your blood can circulate now, and everything can go to work, and it can put out the fires of inflammation and restore the autonomic nervous system and restore the immune system. Because what I say, if you have any kind of health disorder, I don't care what it is, then health is your most natural state. Look at nature. The animals who live in the wild, they don't have cancer. They don't have these modern health disorders. They don't have cardiovascular disease, lupus, MS, and so on. Animals who live indoors with their owners, they all manifest the same health disorders as their owners. And so we know now that it's environment because it doesn't occur in nature. So, so if you have a health disorder, if your health is compromised, then something is compromising your immune system because your immune system is what keeps you alive and healthy. So you have to find out what's affecting your immune system, what's interfering with your immune system's ability to maintain health, and start removing those things or adding those things that the immune system needs. So it's removing stressors, whatever, and adding nutrition, quietness, calmness, whatever those things are. But anyhow, to get grounded, so many people, everybody has to. This is the big challenge I came across when we began studying this: was what can we do for people that will help them more than any other? What is the single most important thing we can do? And so you can't change people's habits; it's not going to happen, and especially if they're older. So what you can do is, if we can give something to lay on or put it under their sheet, they don't have to do it. They don't have to do it one time. They don't have to mess with it every day. Whatever, put it under their feet. Put it under their keyboard so they don't have to do anything except touch it or lay down and go to sleep or sit and do what they normally do. So that's the way I approached all of this, because a lot of people don't have time to go outdoors. If you can get outdoors, you need to get outdoors. You must get your kids outdoors these days. You must get your kids back into nature. They have these forest walks, everybody getting back into the forest and feel the forest. It's alive. It's energetic. It talks to you. It tells you, all these things. And so, but anyhow, these tools, we've given a few tools. Once you experience grounding, once you understand it and make sense of it, then, there's things you can buy for $59 that are life-changing. There's nothing that's more important than grounding your body. We spent 20 years doing the research, 25 peer-reviewed studies. We have invested probably $20 million in the research and so on. We didn't do that because we had an ego and we wanted to go prove something. This is essential. This is something that has to be.
Tell us what your health was like before age 13, and then what happened.
Well, when I was 7 years old, I was really sick with the measles, and I had an amazing experience where I had overheard my parents talking about how the next day I was going into the hospital into something called an oxygen tent, and I didn't know really what that meant. But my parents came into the room. They had made a bed for me upstairs so I could be near their bedroom. They'd made a bed for me on this couch in the living room. And this particular night, they came into the room, and my mother said to my father, "Will you kneel down and say a prayer so that our boy will be able to get well?" And so they did. And in the middle of this prayer, that my father was offering, I had this change that started at the top of my head that went whoosh through my body that fast, and I was instantly made well. And to go from being really sick one moment to being totally healed the next instant is something totally unforgettable that is so remarkable and so unusual and really so incredible. You can't forget it. And I held my tongue till my dad was done praying, and I said, I'm better. I'm healed. I'm well. God healed me. And they said, well, that's fine, honey. Go back to sleep. You're going into the oxygen tent tomorrow. But the next day proved I was better. And then when I was 13, I developed kidney disease. And it was horrifically painful. And my parents took me to the hospital. Of course, they ran all these tests. And they said I had kidney disease and that it was about 50% fatal, but there was no treatment available for me in Western medicine. So my parents decided that they would take me to see some alternative doctors. And these doctors did things that were completely outside of mainstream medicine, but it was apparently exactly what my body needed, because within short order I started getting better. And within a few weeks, I was completely well. And my parents took me back to the hospital, and they ran all the tests. And as I recall, they ran all the tests twice. And they said, well, it's a spontaneous remission. It's remarkable. Whatever we did must have helped. And I knew that they hadn't really done anything, but these other people had. So I decided I wanted to be a doctor at that point. And not just any kind of doctor, but the kind of doctor that actually helps people in natural ways. So time went on. I got more and more involved in computers and business and other things. And eventually it was I was brought back to a point where I had to decide. I was at a crossroads what I was going to do with my life, either the business world and computers or the healing world. And it was a very powerful, very direct answer to prayer that brought me back to the healing arts. So when I got into practice, I went to school, chiropractic
Mind
school.
if I pause you for a quick second?
Mm-hmm.
So you went into prayer. What did that look like? And you said it was a very clear answer.
Yeah, well, I got on my knees and I prayed. You see, that initial experience when I was 7 years old was very powerful for me. I was only 7. But what it taught me was that there's a higher power that we can draw upon, that we can ask that power for help, and we can get it. And that's what healed me when I was 7. And so all those years later, when I was asking for help, that was the beginning really of that knowledge that you can ask for help and you can receive help. And so that made a very big, it had a really profound effect on me. So when I'm talking about praying, I was just on my knees at the side of my bed, just praying and asking God, what should I do with my life? Do you have anything to say about this? I'll do whatever you think. And so what actually happened was the first night I did that, I was awakened 3 different times.
Yeah.
And each time that I was awakened, my mind was full of all these warm, happy thoughts about helping other people and serving people and healing people naturally and how great that is. And so that, I thought about it and I thought, well, that's great, but, computers and so on, that's also really great. And so I went back to sleep. And that happened 3 times. I was awakened 3 times and the same thing happened. So then the second night I'm on my knees again praying before I go to bed and asking God to help me to know what to do. And I have the same experience on the second night. 3 times I'm awakened. But on the second night, each time that I was awakened, the feelings of thoughts of service to people and how wonderful that is, the feelings were geometrically more powerful, exponentially more powerful. Until the third time on that second night when I was awakened, the thoughts of service to mankind and humanity and the whole entire world were absolutely overwhelming. And right then I actually heard a voice that spoke to me as clearly as anything I've ever heard. And it said, this is a sacred calling. And so that was the answer that I was looking for. And so I thought, okay, awesome. So when I got into school, I tried to stay open to any kind of possibilities. And when I got out of school, I got into practice. I formed this habit that every time I saw somebody, I would just take a moment, just a few seconds really, and I would ask for help from that higher power, from God or source energy, however you want to refer to it. And there were times during those years when someone would come in to see me and I didn't know how to approach their problem. I didn't know how to deal with them. I didn't know what to do, how to take care of them. And in response to that silent, short, brief asking for help, that prayer, the information would literally just flood into my being about what to do for them and how to look at their problem and how to perceive it and how to really help them. And it was an amazing thing. Now, in all the years I was in practice, brick and mortar practice for 17 years, that kind of thing only happened on probably a handful of occasions. I can probably count those occasions on one hand. The rest of the time, it was just little bits here and there. But I know that higher power is aware of us and everything we're doing all the time. And so, it's that's really where the information came from, the emotion code, the body code. I was just trying to help people. I was obsessed, really, with trying to understand what was really wrong with them. Why did my patients have symptoms? What were the real underlying causes of their symptoms? And my reasoning was if I could fix the true underlying causes of their symptoms, then their symptoms could go away and then they could go on with their lives. And what I learned was, of course, the emotional baggage that we all have, that we pick up during our lives, affects us physically and mentally and emotionally. And that's why I wrote the emotion code and published that 11 years ago. Well, about a year after I published the emotion code, I woke up one morning and my mind was full of instruction. And the instruction was very specific. It said, you need to take everything that you've learned about natural healing and put it into a self-study course that anyone can learn and make it available to everyone, everywhere. And so I sat on that for about 3 months, just thinking about how much work it was going to be. And then I started working. It took me a year to produce what we now call the body code. And that was body code 1.0. We now have body code 2.0. And we're working on body code 3.0. But anyway, that's the body code is basically everything that I learned during all those years about natural healing from other people and other places, but also from that higher power. And so it's all in one self-study course that anyone can learn. And we believe it's the most advanced self-study course on energy healing that exists in the world. And it's also the most powerful method of energy medicine, we believe, that exists in the world. And it's so unique, it's actually patented. And so we're trying to make it available in every language all over the world. And we have English and Spanish and German so far, and we have other ones that we're going to be releasing soon. So the background to this is that I used to be a computer programmer starting in the early 1980s. And so when I got into practice, I was always trying to blend my knowledge of computers with the work that I was doing with the body. And so it led me eventually to put together this system that we call the body code. And it looks like this. And essentially what this is it's a patented software that enables us to drill down very rapidly and find out what the problems are. So here you see the 6 underlying causes, the 6 categories of imbalances that cause all the troubles that we suffer from. So let's take a quick look at these. Here we have pathogens. And if I click on that one, you can see pathogens are things like parasites, fungal infections, bacterial infections, viral infections, mold. These are organisms that get into the body from the outside that set up housekeeping. And if you don't get rid of these, then you're not going to be as healthy as you could be. And that makes sense, right? If we look at this one, this area is misalignments. Now, as a chiropractor, I was trained to find misalignments and fix them, primarily in the spine. As time went on, however, we'll click on that one, I found that any tissue can become misaligned in the body. And so we have all of the tissues represented here. And the most common area of misalignment that we find, of course, as you might expect, is things in the skeleton. And we might find things in the axial skeleton. We might find bones in the spine out of alignment, or we might find ribs out of alignment, etc. You just never know. Anything can misalign. Any tissue can misalign. But if there's something out of alignment in your body, you're not going to function as well as you should. Okay? And I think that's pretty obvious and makes sense. Down here we have imbalances of nutrition and lifestyle. So if I click down here on this one, you can see we have things like color deficiency, sleep deficiencies, things that you might need that aren't necessarily part of the body code. Things like, for example, chiropractic care, energy techniques, and so on. Those are all in there. including different kinds of sports and exercise techniques. There's dehydration. There's malnutrition. That's both physical and spiritual, by the way, which is interesting. And then pH imbalance. We also have things like foods and herbs and nutrients. So, for example, if I go here, we have a table that pops up that looks kind of like the emotion code chart that has all the nutrients in there. I can't show you on this version. This is kind of a test version that doesn't have that installed yet. But we have tables of all the foods and herbs and so on. And so to give you an idea how powerful this can be, there was a patient that came to me once who'd been hospitalized for 5 days. And she had this terrible pain, is why they hospitalized her. They tried everything, every test that they could, tested everything, couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. And they finally decided that it was kind of in her head. She was a little bit crazy, they thought. And so they let her go from the hospital. They said, we think it's all in your head. You have to go. Well, she was really in pain. She came in to see me, and she's still in pain. And so I used the body code on her and found a few things and fixed them. One of the things that I found, which I thought was just an incidental finding, was that she needed chromium. And it went right to that part of the chart. And I said, well, it looks like you need chromium. I don't have any right now. We're out of it. It sounds like it's something that you might need to get. I didn't think much about it. So the next day she comes back into my office, and she's still in pain. In fact, she's even worse. And I didn't know what else to do. I was really very concerned about her. And I opened the body code, and it took us right into this area, foods, herbs, and nutrients, right into the nutrient area. And we were able to find out that it was the first thing that showed up was chromium. And then I remember from the day before, and I said, oh, yeah, wait a minute, that showed up yesterday. I think your body really needs that. Your body's trying to tell us you need this. I want you to leave right now. Leave my office, drive down the street, go to the health food store, buy some chromium, open it right there, have them give you some water, and take it right then. And she did. And 20 minutes later, she's jumping up and down, literally in my waiting room, saying, I'm fixed, I'm fixed. It was amazing. She said the moment she took it, the pain was gone. And she said, how did that work? And I said, I really don't know. And I still don't know. But you see, the subconscious mind is very, very willing to talk to you, okay? Your own subconscious mind knows what's going on with you on a perfect level, with a perfect understanding, and it knows what you need.
You discovered tapping, and you're going to have to share, of course, what tapping is, but you discovered it, and that helped you to dive deep and helped you with that inquiry process.
Well, 100%. And that's it. And, for people who are joining us and think that we're talking about tap dancing and are getting very lost, tapping.
Which would be fun.
It would be fun. Hey, whatever works, right? If tap dancing cleared limiting beliefs, I would get into it. We call it tapping because we are physically, and if you're just listening to the podcast, I'm taking 2 fingers and I'm tapping physically on these endpoints of meridians of our body. And what the latest research is showing is that when we do this, we send a calming signal to the amygdala in the brain. Mm-hmm. We are, in essence, telling our brain, that fight or flight response, that it's safe. You talked about that inquiry process. If you don't have a tool, whether it be tapping or meditation or exercise and yoga or whatever process, journaling, to be able to do that inquiry and to move through it, it can be really frustrating, right? So if you're angry at your family, at the world, at life, and you don't have a tool to move through that anger, then it's kind of like, all right, I'm just going to ignore this. Why do this deeper inquiry when I'm just getting more mad? And then one of the things about the tapping process that people initially can struggle with is they say, okay, but why are we looking at all this negative stuff? Like, you're bringing up these negative things. You're talking about the anger, talking about the anxiety. They say, hey, I watched The Secret. They told me to be all positive and think happy thoughts. I'm all about that. I think the best explanation for why we do this negative inquiry is what my friend Louise Hay said. The dearly departed, she just passed away a few months ago. Many of your listeners are really familiar with Louise Hay House, her work, You Can Heal Your Life. We were talking about tapping, and I said, Louise, you're the queen of affirmations, right? Queen of positive thinking. And here we are tapping. We're tapping on a childhood trauma that she had. Like, so why are we looking at this? And she said something that I think about every single day. She said, honey, if you want to clean a house, you have to see the dirt. Mm-hmm. And that to me, it was like, that's when the heavens opened. I said, yeah, let's not swallow down this dirt. And we're not doing it to anchor it in. We're not doing it to be negative people. We're doing, okay, there's dirt in that corner. So we're going to clean it. Like, let's look at it, clean it, and then that positive, inspired person can come forth naturally, right? Inspire Nation, not to force it, but because, and you said it before we talked, you gave me a little background on yourself. You said you just have this thing within you, right? That is just like, I want to motivate and inspire people. It comes naturally. You don't have to wake up in the morning and force yourself to do it. You don't have to be in the mirror and say positive affirmations. You can say them if you want, but they're natural. They're not forced. And I think that's what happens when you look at the dirt, when you clear out the things from the past, then you wake up with that joy and that freedom.
Woohoo! I've used tapping for a few years. It's, to me, one of the single most important and powerful tools out there. When I describe it to my clients, I use a very simple term that you may have used yourself, which is short-circuiting. Yeah. By giving the most negative, triggering thought possible, and then going to those points to soothe the nervous system, we short it out.
We short it out. And it's crazy. And it's crazy what happens that, if I'm dealing with somebody with anger, it's like, we want to go there. I'm so angry. We want to speak our truth. I mean, that's part of this process too. We are so good at bearing our emotions and repressing everything that just saying, you know what, I'm angry, and taking not an hour, taking a few minutes to say, this is the truth of how I feel. I'm going to feel it, and you said it perfectly, short circuit it, stop that brain pattern. And but if people haven't experienced it, it's the weirdest thing. It's still weird to me a decade later that I can be upset or stressed and overwhelmed, and I can go through this process, and then next thing I know, I just don't care. It's like it moves away. Some people describe it as like, if you're angry, you feel it in your body or you can grab onto it. But then when you tap, you're like, why are we even talking about this? I can't even connect to what it was I was feeling before.
What's an MPI?
MPI. So that's one of the ways that I like to start tapping. And there's many approaches, right? The MPI is the most pressing issue. It's like, what's the thing that's weighing you down right now? We all have a thing that we can go, and sometimes it's a lifelong thing, and sometimes it's a last week thing. So we can say, over the last week, this thing is just like, it's taking my energy. It's sapping my energy. It's what I'm stressed out about. It's what I'm overwhelmed about. Most pressing issue. This is the thing that's bearing down on you. Something from the past, something you're doing today, something for the future. You might have a speech that you have to give in 6 months, and you're nervous about it. And guess what? That's your MPI. And for 6 months, unless you do something about it before that point, you're going to feel that stress. You're going to feel that overwhelm, and it's going to press on you, right? What we want to do is lighten the load. With tapping, we can go deep. We can address old traumas. We can clean up the past. We can rewrite these patterns. I like to start by finding some relief, because many of us just don't have the energy to do this work. You're like, look, I'm just trying to keep up with my day. Nonetheless, like, go back 20 years and figure out what happened there and clean it. So MPI, how do we get that breathing room? How do we calm that panic and that stress response to the place where we can then find a little space to do that deeper work? So step one, let's pick that MPI for you. You might be anxious about something. You might be angry. Maybe you're overwhelmed. If you have physical pain in your body, tapping is super powerful for that. Pick that now. Pick a thing that you're like, you know what? If 5 minutes from now this was gone, or I felt less stress about it, you would be happy, right? Pick a target. That is your MPI. And just take a moment to tune into it. And as you tune in, give it a number on a scale of 0 to 10. 10 being the most intense, the most pressing. 0 being it's not there. You want to pick something 5 or higher, ideally. Right? So we have our target and we have our number. And it's always important to give a number, because the shift can happen so fast that if we don't give it a number, we think, that I was never mad in the first place. Right? We have a target, we have a number, and then we'll start tapping. We start by tapping, and you can see me on the video, and I'll describe it for those of you listening on your phone. We start by tapping on the side of the hand. It's called the karate chop point. It's below the pinky on the outside of the hand. Whatever hand feels comfortable for you. And you're just tapping gently, and repeat after me. And I'm going to use very general language. You want to focus in on your issue, what you're feeling, what you're thinking. So even though I'm holding on to all this stress in my body, you can just repeat that silently or out loud, whatever's comfortable for you. I choose to relax and feel safe now. And again, still on the side of the hand, we're going to do that 2 more times, just tuning in to that issue. Even though I have all this stress in my body, I choose to relax and feel safe now. And one more time, still on the side of the hand, focusing on that issue. Even though I'm holding on to this so tight, I choose to relax and feel safe now. And now we tap through the points. The first point is the eyebrow point, inside of the eyebrow, right where the hair ends and it meets the nose. You can do one side, the other side, or both sides. The meridians run down both sides of the body. You're just tapping with 2 fingers gently, not counting, not worrying about getting it perfectly or right, just tuning into that issue, that stressful thing that you brought up, whether it was pain in your body or anxiety or overwhelm. What we're doing here, as we said earlier, is we're looking at that dirt. We're trying to activate the amygdala, activate that thing that is running in your mind. And now we move to the side of the eye. It's not at the temple, right next to the eye, on the bone, being present to these feelings. If you're by yourself and you can speak out loud, you can say just how you feel, right? You can say, I'm angry at Joe. You can say, I'm stressed out about this presentation in 2 weeks. Speaking the truth of how you feel in this moment now. Now, under the eye, on the bone, again, being present to how you feel. Maybe it's an event, so maybe you're running a movie about what's happening, something someone said or did to you, something you're worried about. Run that movie. Be present to that feeling. Under the nose, feeling the feelings in your body, and just noticing what comes up as you focus on this. Notice what emotions, what events, what images. Under the mouth, being present to the feeling. It's above the chin, below the lip, and that little crease there, tapping with 2 fingers. Running that movie, thinking those thoughts. And if you get distracted, that's okay. Just come back to your original issue, what it was you were working on. There's 3 points left for the collarbone point. Just feel for the 2 little bones of the collarbone. And you want to go down 1 inch, out to each side about 1 inch. You can tap with all 10 fingers of both hands to make sure you get the point. And again, being present to that stressor. If there's pain in your body, just be with it now. And be with any emotions that come up. Now, underneath the armpit, 3 inches underneath the armpit, right on the bra line for women, either side of the body. Being present to those feelings, to that stress, to that anxiety, to that overwhelm, to that anger. And the last point, top of the head, running that movie again. Being present to it. Now we'll do one more round and just repeat after me out loud or silently. It's safe to let this go. Side of the eye. Part of me doesn't want to let it go. Under the eye. But what if I could let it go now? Under the nose. I wonder why I'm holding on. Under the mouth. And I wonder if I could let this go. Collarbone. From every cell in my body. Under the arm. Right now. Top of the head. Right now. And you can gently stop tapping. Take a deep breath in. And just tune back in. Tune back into that original issue and check that number. So it was an 8 before, now it's a 7 or a 6 or a 5. We just want to notice what shifted, and we want to notice what else came up, right? What other thoughts and ideas? Sometimes we're tapping on back pain and then we think about our boss. Maybe that's related in some way. Sometimes we're tapping about a presentation that we have to give in 2 weeks and we think about something that happened 20 years ago. So Michael, as you know, that's the tapping process, just a few quick rounds, very generally. And as we go forward, we get more specific and we keep tapping as long as we need to experience the relief that we're looking for.
What's the importance of the basic setup statement? And can you give us that again? Because I think it's important for people to really ingrain this one.
No, for sure. So the setup statement, tapping on the side of the hand, right? So the basic phrasing is, even though and we list our problem, even though I'm angry, even though I'm overwhelmed, even though I'm scared, even though I don't think I can do this, even though I don't believe in myself, even though I have this pain in my back, right? Whatever the thing's happening. And then the second half of the setup statement is either the general one is I love, accept, and forgive myself. Mm-hmm. Recently, I've been doing, and you heard me do, I choose to relax and feel safe now. The reason I've liked that one is the love, accept, and forgive myself is powerful. As this reaches a wider, broader audience, there can be a little pushback to that, right? It's like, wait, why are we loving ourselves and accepting ourselves? And, I believe this is a tool and it's happening that can reach millions and tens of millions of people and help them in their daily lives. So I'm changing the language a little bit with choose to relax and feel safe. And a lot of people, what I'm noticing too, Michael, is that safety language, right? I choose to relax and feel safe. They really connect to. Accepting yourself can feel very out there, like, how do I accept myself? When do I reject myself? It's kind of like the safety thing, especially when we look at our body and we look at traumas and we look at the stressors, we can all seem to connect a little bit to like, what would it feel like to be safe, right? That brings in an element of relaxation that helps turn off that fight or flight response. So that's why I've been playing with that language recently.
What does it mean, peace or panic?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So, and that's how, and I so appreciate you saying follow through, because that's what matters on these things, right? Getting to the end. And to that effect, we actually have a 21-day email sequence that you can sign up for. It's totally free. And we send you reminders. And here's what's cool about it. It's either every 21 days, or we can do every other day or every 3 days. Like the system is configured so you can select your pace. Because sometimes people are like, oh my God, 21 days in a row, I can't do this, I'm busy. Great, do it every other day, right? Make it 42 days, but follow the system. So anyway, that's available, and you can sign up for that right when you get the book.
URL?
It's right at the front of the book. It's like the first page, it says, go here in this box, and Perfect. Then you can sign up for it. I can't give it all away, right? People will sign up for reminders. I'm kidding. Peace or panic, it's a little bit of what we did just now in that first tapping sequence. How do we move towards peace in our lives? Panic, I use the word panic not in like always a full-blown panic, though many of us are. The majority of people that I meet out there are walking around in some level of panic, right? Whether it be a 1 out of 10, like just low-grade panic, or a 10 out of 10. It's the stress of the modern world. We have things coming at us all the time. Especially in the last decade, there is no downtime. These phones, look, I love my iPhone. It's amazing. It's a flashlight. It's this, it's that. It takes amazing pictures. It's great to connect with people around the world. And it's perfectly designed to keep you on it and addicted. And it's information coming at you all the time. We're not used to this. We're not used to this level of engagement with the world. Most of us, if we sit by ourselves quietly for 5 minutes, we're just bored beyond belief, right? We're just like, oh my God, what do I do now? So we've been conditioned. I think we have to recognize that this is a different human experience than we might have had in the past. And with that comes just this low-grade panic, right? Where it's just like that stress, that overwhelm, the things coming at us. What I'm proposing, when you do this tapping, you start choosing peace. You start bringing down these feelings of panic in the body and the stress and the overwhelm. And you start getting to what we talked about in the beginning of the conversation with Tony Robbins stuff, getting to control your life, right? To a place where like panic just doesn't happen to you. You have a choice. You have a choice when you wake up in the morning, if you're doing this work, to feel that peace. And then when you start opening that door, when you start doing the tapping, and that's what I love about it, you get that positive reinforcement, right? Like you do. There's some people reading the book right now. We have a Facebook group for it. So they're like giving feedback every day. And after day one, you see that people have opened a door that their mind's going, I have a tool to reduce the panic and I can start to choose peace. Mm-hmm. Without that tool, it can be difficult and scary, right? Yeah, I'd like to choose peace, but like I'm freaking out, This is a way to turn off, short circuit, like you said earlier, turn off that brain and these patterns of panic. We are running patterns of panic. We're good at it. Our brains are used to doing it. We're running on autopilot. On day one of this program, we short circuit it. We hit that pause button, and then that peace starts growing and growing.
Woohoo! Woohoo! Automatic writing is perhaps the most cutting-edge tool for connecting with the other side, which is why we've written the definitive guide called the Automatic Writing Experience. To find out more, simply visit automaticwriting.com. It's my favorite way to help you to shine bright. Woohoo!